Hi guys, Asmo here, and today I'm going to talk about Echoes of the Atlas, which is the new expansion for POE that has been just announced together with the Ritual League. There is so much new content coming on, especially to the end game of the POE, and I'm very excited for that because there is a lot of customization that you can do to the end game, and there are so many changes. Like there are reworked ascendancies. Virtually every ascendancy was changed in some way, so there are a lot of changes coming on. We have only two new skills, I think, coming from like the new two skill gems, but there are so many changes to the ascendancies that I think there are going to be so many new builds and new possibilities. So the first thing that we're going to be seeing is the new end game progression that is added to the Atlas, and that is going to come alongside the Conquerors. So we're still going to have Conquerors, we're still going to have Watchstones, but things are going to be added on top of that as an additional thing. There's going to be the Maven, which is like another endgame boss that you can progress toward by basically killing monsters and letting her watch. So you invite her into a map. You can click on a button on the map device. You can invite her to a map after you discovered her, and then basically you let her see you kill a boss. She makes that boss harder, and then after you kill that boss, this gets stored, and then you get to fight in her zone that boss again together with other map bosses, and you fight like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like you fight multiple map bosses at the same time. You get some rewards, and eventually you get to fight 10 map bosses at the same time in one arena. So you definitely have to have a strong build, and there can be like some crazy interactions of all the different AoE skills that are happening at the same time. So this is going to be a league that is definitely something that map characters can do very well at, but also clear speed is going to be pretty important for the ritual part of the league. So all around, so much different content, and the Maven is going to be like another extra boss that you can progress toward fighting in the in the end game, which you can do alongside of the Cyrus. Fighting these bosses and fighting the fights for her allows you to unlock Atlas passive skill trees, which is an amazing way of customizing the content. The Atlas skill trees are going to be basically each one is assigned to a specific region on the Atlas and affects the maps in that region, and those give you bonuses such as like for example, slaying enemies closer together has like 3% chance to spawn monsters from beyond, so you get like an extra percentage chance to beyond, so you can do better beyond, you can do better legions, you can do better temple, you can do better strong boxes. Whatever kind of content you prefer farming, there's probably something for that in one of those regions. Not all of the regions will have the same things. So for example, if you want to do like Delve, or if you want to do Legion, it's probably going to be available in a few of those, like maybe like 3 or 4. Let's see if we can look at like the green thing is probably like Abyss, right? So we have like 1 of it, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. So there is not much of it, there is a lot of it. So certain regions are going to be better for certain mechanics, and certain regions are going to be not as good for those mechanics. Like here you can see I think there's like a lot of beyond stuff happening, and this is probably balanced around which maps are there, because certain maps are way better for certain mechanics. Like a map like Glacier for something like Beyond, because of map being much smaller and the mobs having higher density, can be completely different and can be completely game breaking. Or like Legion would be great on that map, and so on. So maybe it's balanced a little bit around that, but they are saying that they are open to feedback, and in the future that might change. To me, I would prefer if you could like pick which skills you put on which region yourself, but for now we're gonna have to go with that. This is still an insane amount of customization that is being added, and I think that they are definitely listening to the feedback. I think because of the fact that they had a little bit more time to develop this league, they actually took time to adjust it to what the players actually enjoy. And I'm gonna talk about it a little bit more when I talk about Ritual, because I'm really happy about some of the things in Ritual that they've done that is basically like a massive improvement on the previous league mechanics. So Basically, in the new Atlas for this year, basically the expansion is the Maven, right? You get to fight the bosses, you get the rewards, you fight the Maven boss, you get the new Atlas customization, you get to like customize whatever mechanic you prefer to do it. If you like Abyss, if you're like hunting for specific unique in SSF, you get to do more of a league mechanic that will give you that unique. So this is really great. And then also you can find and craft watchstones. Those are craftable watchstones that are going to basically replace the normal watchstones that you're going to put in your skill tree, in your passive, sorry, in your Atlas. And in those citadels in your Atlas, you're going to be able to have fully customized watchstones that are possible. You can craft on them. You can craft them basically like flasks. They can become magic, but they cannot become rare because they're basically limiting them to 2 mods. And these can have, as we can see here, like increased effect of modifiers on non-unique maps, or like Legion encounters have chance to include Marrakech army, which are the more rare splinters, like the Marrakech splinters, and the Marrakech emblem is the rarest one and the most expensive one, so people really want that one. And this is something that you can actually boost, and you can probably craft the watchstones with different ones, like whatever you need at any given moment. Items have a chance to have maximum number of sockets. Sulfite gives you, like, you get more sulfite from that. This is, for example, a watchstone that people who just spam farm sulfite in a certain map, they would put 4 of those in that region to get even more sulfite than they're getting now, right? So you can customize, like even if you're just delving, you're still gonna be like buying specific maps where you have that watchstone, like people are doing right now with the summit, right? Because you can very quickly get all the sulfite that spawns close to each other. So people are using that to get a lot of it very quickly, and you're gonna be able to customize it even more now and do better at whatever league mechanic you're enjoying. What is this? Imprisoned monsters have like 10% chance to have initial essence, so you can get like extra essences. You can have extra white sockets. There are so many things that you can have on these watchstones. Some of them are gonna be more useful, some of them less useful, but it's really, really nice. And then we've got Maven's Orb. So the Maven's Orb is removing one of an influence modifiers that you have on an item and then making another modifier higher, right? So if you can, for example, if you can have like a modifier that gives you an extra int, then you're gonna be able to get like extra int and then +1 to int skill gems or something like that that they shown on the trailer. Here, as you can see, this is like a modifier that normally gives you increased life recovery rate or like regen, something like that, and it probably got upgraded to something that gives your life flasks extra charge every 3 seconds, right? So that's probably like increased life recovery rate or something like that. Maybe that's like an extra regen mod, maybe something else. Like there are so many of these that you're basically going to be able to min-max the items even more, and this is like an end game crafting item that's supposed to be really difficult to obtain because it's gonna be basically coming from the end game fight, the Maven, which is kind of like the Cyrus of this expansion. However, you're also going to be able to fight Cyrus, right? Another important thing that they said is that for now we still get the Conquerors and Cyrus, but in the future they're thinking of like completely reworking or removing that. So we'll see, but they're adding and testing different endgame progression systems alongside to see how they interact and which ones people like more. Then we're also getting new maps. There are going to be 11 new maps with new tile sets. There's like a rocky desert, there's like a watery dark garden kind of thing, and there is like a specter pirate called kind of like winter indoor map, and there are going to be multiple more maps, and that's really cool because we get to explore something new, not only just like the same maps over and over. This is part of what they've been doing basically for POE 2. They've been making new maps, new environments, new assets, and they are using these new assets already to introduce them into the game and to make new maps, which is really, really cool. And then the second part of this release is of course the Challenge League, which this time is going to be called the Ritual League, and it's all about combat in maps, that you do additional, you fight additional monsters around the ritual, around like an altar. So you have like an altar where you have monsters around it, you kill them, and then you can activate the altar, and then all of these monsters are resurrected and attack you, and there's a bunch of more monsters coming, and if you kill all of the monsters, then you get a bunch of tribute. And that tribute can be spent on purchasing items, which are just absolutely all kinds of items. You can find maps, items, currency, influenced items. You can find fragments for maps, scarabs, uniques, you name it. Like everything pretty much that you can find in the game can be there. And sometimes it can be a really, really expensive item. Let's say you find an exalted orb. But an exalted orb costs more tribute than you can spend in that given map, right? For those rituals, you can do something called deferring. You can defer the item, which means you're going to be spending tribute on it, but you're going to be able to get it over time, which means you don't have to be able to afford that one item from the rituals in that zone. You can actually get it in the next zone or the next zone after that, depending on how much tribute it will take to get it, which is amazing. It's like way better mechanic than, for example, something like Kadiro. It's way better than Kadiro because you don't have to collect the coins. You have to just kill monsters to get the tribute. You can get a choice from multiple different items, and different things might be useful to you at different times. And then if you cannot afford it, you can kind of like save it and get it, earn it over time. If you are lucky enough to get something really, really valuable, you can make sure that you get it and you're not gonna lose it. You're not gonna find Kadiro with a headhunter and you're playing in SSF and you're playing at the start of the league and no one even has Brandus coins yet, so you cannot even buy them and you cannot acquire that item and you lose it, right? You lose that opportunity and you feel bad. In this case, you're going to be able to defer the item and just get it over time anyway. So this is really, really cool because you won't see these crazy items that often, but when you do, you're actually going to be able to get them. So that's really, really cool. And then the end game of this is going to be actually juicing these rituals. So you're going to be able to use a ritual vessel after you completed the ritual. So when you complete the ritual and you can, purchase these items for tribute and the ritual is done, you can use the vessel on an altar and you can store the monsters that you killed, and it's gonna count whatever monsters you killed. It's gonna count if there was a boss in there because the ritual happened to be next to a boss, then it's gonna count that as well. And then you can put that in another map basically by putting this vessel into a map device alongside your map, and then the rituals in the map that you're going to be running are going to be juiced up. They're going to have way more monsters because they're going to have basically twice as much stuff in them, and they're going to have better rewards after you complete them. So you can just use that exponentially because the maps that you're going to be running, if you put more sextants, if you put more mods, if you put more scarabs, there are going to be more monsters next to the altars. And if there are more monsters next to the altars initially when they spawn, then that means there are going to be more monsters resurrected, more tribute, better rewards, and so on. And by doing that multiple times, you can increase that amount. Of course, you cannot use it on a map on an altar where you already juiced it, so this only works in a way that you can store these monsters. But then if you're doing a map with the vessel, you cannot store that again, because that would be like infinitely multiplying, and eventually you'd have like infinite amount of monsters, so you cannot do that. You can only do that once. So if you have not used a blood-filled vessel, then you can use it, but if you have put it in your map, then you cannot use it on those altars, right? Because they're already like juiced. So you can only juice the altar once. If it's juiced, you cannot juice it more than that. And then we've got also a lot of rebalancing changes, which is going to be really exciting. Once we see the changes to the Pathfinder, or actually, for that matter, all of the ascendancies, I'm going to make a video probably with an update, if it's necessary, about the Toxic Rain Pathfinder build guide that I have, because this is potentially going to change some things, but maybe it will stay as it is. But I'll definitely let you guys know which one it is. Really exciting to see all of these changes, because ascendancies have been a little bit stale, and I'm happy that they are actually taking their time to buff certain skills. I think they said that they buffed like 40 plus skills, which is really amazing to see, because mostly they've been nerfing skills and not buffing them enough. And I think this is a common mistake that the game developers make when they just keep nerfing things. They just like nerf whatever is the strongest thing, and then people just go, okay, I'm just gonna play this other the second strongest, and okay, they nerf that, I'll play the third strongest, and so on and so on, and it's boring and stale, people play the same builds. But if you keep buffing things to bring them in line with other things, that broadens the options for players and makes for a better build variety. So I definitely like that little shuffle up by buffing skills, not only just nerfing. So like 40 skills are going to be buffed. So and that's really important, right? Because it's very easy to nerf something, but if you are going to buff something, you also like it's pretty difficult to overshoot that much. Like if a skill is like completely shitty because it has like really slow cast speed and really low damage, and you buff one of these things, then maybe it will be better, right? Maybe some people who are actually enjoying playing with that skill are going to have now a build that is closer to the power level of the meta builds, which will just be better for everyone, right? It's just gonna make the players feel better for playing whatever build they like playing. So I really like those changes as well. I love the customization of the end game. There are so many, like some of these skill trees, some of these ascendancy passives like look like a crazy spider web, like Deadeye. I think, where's Deadeye? I think they're not showing it here, but it looked like a crazy spider webs of ascendancy passives. It's really crazy. After that, next thing that is going to be introduced are a bunch of new uniques. So we have here the Black Flame, which is an amethyst ring that is a chaos res ring that gives you fire damage over time multiplier, reduced ignite duration on enemies, a chance to ignite, enemies ignited by you take chaos damage instead of fire from ignite, and withered does not expire on enemies ignited by you. This means you can keep stacking withered, and that withered will last a long time, and you can just like run around and keep igniting people, and they are going to burn with fire damage. This means that you can, for example, maybe you can do like an occultist that deals fire damage, and you will actually benefit from the reduced chaos and the wither and so on, reduced chaos resistance. So this is really interesting. This also might work well with something like what's it called? Oh, this also might work with like skills that convert, right? There are skills that convert, like Flame Blast has now like a conversion to chaos, and it can poison. Maybe you can do like poison and ignite, things like that. Then we have these boots, which let's see what they have on them. It's armor evasion hybrid. It's -14 to all res, 30% movement speed, increased effect of Scorch, and it drops scorched ground while moving that lasts 4 seconds. And then when you kill a scorched enemy, they might, it's like 30-something% chance, burn surrounding enemies for 4 seconds, dealing 8% of the killed enemy life as fire damage per second. Okay, this is really complicated to calculate, but essentially if you are running around and killing stuff behind you, it might just burn enemies. On top of that, it's kind of like weird version of limited kind of explode mechanics, something like that. Basically the corpse damage of the monsters is going to be kind of the source of damage. Then we have these gloves. It doesn't look too exciting, to be honest, because it's like a skill effect that happens behind you, so you're kind of limited in how you can use it. This is a Hand of the Fervent Zod gloves. Increased armor and energy shield, life, gains sacrificial zeal when you use a skill, dealing 150 of the skill's mana cost as fizz damage per second. And then hits overwhelm 11% of fizz damage reduction while you have sacrificial zeal. Okay, so they also grant added spell physical damage equal to 25% of the mana skill cost and causes you to take physical damage over time. So this will be good for, let's say, something like EK to add extra physical damage, and then you also get like the penetration, right? The hits overwhelm fizz damage reduction. However, you're going to be taking physical damage degen, so you want something like endurance charges, you want something like armor, you want something like regeneration, right? To counteract that. But this could be a really powerful item. You can do kind of like an Archmage, EK kind of setup, something like that. It's really interesting. Definitely something to build around. And then we have extra, what are we, cards, and we have the Hydrosphere and Trinity Support. Trinity Support is something that I think this game really needs. This is basically a support that increases your damage if you're dealing consistently damage with like 3 different elements. So if you're using something like Wild Strike, like Elemental Hit or whatever, these skills that do damage of like 3 different elements, or like 1 element and then another and then another, or something like, for example, what's it called, Wave of Conviction, right, which you are kind of stuck with it having two different elemental damages from being converted, like 25% to fire, 25% to lightning. So this is really cool that you're going to be able to actually benefit from that, because normally these skills are more difficult to scale, so I think they need a little boost like that so that they're actually a viable way to play. And then we have the Hydrosphere, which honestly, it's extremely complicated. If you play League of Legends or you know anything about it, this is similar to like an Oriana orb. You just drop an orb, like a ball, and then you hit that ball, and then that ball hits enemies, and you just move it around, kind of like that. And it can like shock or freeze. Other than that, they're bringing Harvest back without having to craft the gardens. So basically what's gonna happen is you're going to be able to find harvest in your maps, so just spamming maps is going to be important for that. And probably people are going to be like trading harvest crafting services with their instance being open, because you can find some potentially really good crafts. But the way it works right now is that basically you find a garden, you enter the garden, and then you have options, like you have two different like batches of plants planted of these monsters, and it says what monsters are they, what rewards they're likely to grant you, like which crafts you can get of them, like what types of crafts. You pick which one you want to fight, you fight that, and you get the crafts, and that's it, without having to set up the garden, which I think was the thing that turned off most players from it. And they're also making it a little bit weaker than it was in terms of the crafting possibilities. It's not gonna be as easy to craft all of the things that you could craft before, but it's definitely going to help you get better items. Then they are returning the heist, and then basically from Act 6 onwards you're gonna be getting the contracts, and the rogues will level faster, the markers will drop higher, because you're gonna find them less often but like in bigger quantities. And the thing is, I don't know if they're still going to allow for beast splitting or like fracturing the blueprints, but we'll see. That's like the most important change that I want to see about this. And that's basically it, right? So I'm really excited for the endgame customization. I like mapping in this game, and I enjoy when like there's like an extra mapping content and you get to kill some extra bosses, and we got new maps. This is really nice for someone who enjoys mapping, and the league mechanic is just something that's in maps. You do the rituals and you can push them as far as you want. So I'm really excited for that and definitely looking forward to it. Let me know, guys, what you think about this expansion. What are your thoughts? I'm gonna check the comments below later and answer any questions you might have. You can find me also on Twitch TV/Asmodeus stream. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.